Nice day, isn't it? Wow, it sure is coming down out there. We really needed this rain. God, I hope the sun comes out soon. Small talk. Or, we are certain, even about strangers with whom we have never exchanged a meaningful word, certain about the creatureliness we all share. The movements of the heavens, the rush of the wind, the dank heaviness of the late summer air, the riot of the cosmos and the hearty sunshine of the black-eyed Susans, the shift in the skies this very week. We are all together, subject to, affected by, and conversation partners with the mundane and magnificent and sometimes terrible presence of weather. Now, while it is true that there's great metaphorical power in the turning of the seasons, the thing that's truer is that we experience it in our bodies. We rush under the awning together when the rain comes down. We fan ourselves like we're a family of palm fronds in the stickiness. We giggle and gasp and point and stop traffic when the leaves go red or the rainbow appears. We cower and shelter and make do and survive, reminded of how little we are in control. This talk isn't small at all. It's enormous. And deeply relational in that we, stranger to stranger, engage in the ritual of acknowledging our connectedness through the weather, the turning of the seasons, the movement of the earth around the sun, or the moon around the earth. For many of us, the language of the seasons is a primary spiritual language. So when you're talking about the weather, you're not doing small talk at all. You're doing theology. Congratulations. What is theology? Can somebody tell me? Not Taryn. What's theology? Okay, so the academic discipline of theology is the study of God. But if you're not doing that academically, if you're just sort of doing it in your life, what's theology? System of belief that connects you with the holy, making sense of things. Amazing. So from the Greek, theo meaning God, logos meaning words about God, talking about God, God talk, talking about the divine. And the first essay in the new collection called Love at the Center, published by the Unitarian Universalist Association, was written by none other than our preacher from yesterday, the Reverend Nancy MacDonald Ladd, who writes, "Theology is not an inner monologue for the purpose of one's own clarification and edification. It's not talking to oneself about oneself for one's self. At the very least, theology is a dialogue." And so the question I think is most pertinent to our history and our time is not so much what do I personally believe, as it is with whom am I in holy and accountable conversation? Now, she goes on to say that too much fussing about exactly what it is one personally does or does not believe is primarily an exercise in sticking ourselves and each other into neat little boxes. And that you, the reader, should not care very much at all what she personally believes, or even really what you do. In that same collection, Adam Rober Smith says this about love, capital L, love. Love in relational and process theology is not the warm and mushy feelings of pop music and romantic comedy. Love is what allows the world to exist. It's what holds all things together and makes existence coherent. Love is relationship at its best, a way of being that requires relational power. A power that values and respects all that it connects. So putting those two things together, theology, talking about God, talking about big meaning, making sense of things, the big mystery, the holy, is never a monologue. And we are not sitting side by side next to each other, monologuing about what it is we do and do not believe, what we will and won't say, what words we do and don't use for God. There maybe was a time when that's most of what UU congregations were up to. I grew up in Bethesda, Maryland, in a church, UU church in the 90s, and that's exactly what we were up to at that time. So newly captivated by the idea that you could even have different names for the divine at all. But I am 34, so time has passed, and the needs of the world have always been bigger than our personal freedom of expression. Our new articulation of very old theology begins with love at the center. Love not only as something that we must do, but as a force that is bigger than us, inescapably compelling, utterly powerful, always and only relational. In our story this morning about St. Francis, he was in conversation with a lot of people and a lot of beings. Anybody remember who'd Francis talk to? Oh, all right. There's a lot of you. Who'd Francis talk to over here? The creatures. Yeah, the birds. Who else? Huh? Yeah, Francis talked to God. Who else did Francis talk to or consult? Yes, friends, spiritual advisors. Let me give you the list. He refused to take on his father's business because he found it too closed to the needs of the poor. Francis was in conversation with the mystery of dreams, where he received the instruction to wait. He was in conversation with Scripture, friends and advisors, the silence in the churches, the rhythms and the rituals of prayer, the choruses of birds in the caves and the woods, his friends who knew how to build things, and with God. Francis was in conversation. Conversation is talking, but it is also listening, waiting, discerning, weighing each voice in the stirrings of his own heart, until over a period of years, while trying things, it became clear to him what the call was and what the Holy was instructing him to do. I gave you our welcome at the Unitarian Universalist Church of Greensboro. UUs believe that each person has a trustworthy relationship with the Holy, with the source of all life, with the mystery, etc., etc. Though we name it and know it differently from one another. We believe that because we're interconnected, no one's free until we're all free, so we strive to create beloved community on earth in our fellowship with one another and in our work for justice. And most of all, we believe that the spiritual dimension of life calls us to the social dimension of it. And so it matters much more how we live and much less what we believe. I got to tell you, I'm not sure where I got that phrase, trustworthy relationship to the Holy. I feel like I usually keep closer track of my sources, but I don't remember how that one came to me. What I will tell you, though, is that someone I know from seminary who's long struggled with suicidality finds himself hollering at the idea that his relationship to the divine is trustworthy, no matter what he has been told by representatives of the church who claim to speak for God. So we are in holy and accountable conversation with life and death and complication and pain and people who may never call themselves UUs, but who long for our witness. We are in holy and accountable conversation with all the tender and terrified parts of ourselves, when we need to be reminded of our trustworthy relationship with the divine, however we name it and know it. No one's free until we're all free. Who said that? No, not you, Taryn, not you. Who said that? Fannie Lou Hamer. Fannie Lou Hamer is a civil rights giant. She's a backroom organizer, organized the Freedom Summer, pushing for the right to vote for Black people. Frustrated by the political process, She then turned to cooperative economics as a strategy to improve the material conditions of the descendants of those who were enslaved. So in 1968, she started a pig bank to provide free pigs to black farmers. In 1969, she started the Freedom Farm Cooperative, pooling resources, buying up land for black farmers to own and work cooperatively. You know that song in our teal hymnal? You know there's not any hymnals lying around. Well, whatever, that's fine. You know that song, we come from the fire, living in the fire, go back to the fire, turn the world around. Who wrote that? Harry Belafonte wrote that. He was a major donor to the Freedom Farm Cooperative, started by Fannie Lou Hamer. So we are in holy and accountable conversation with the ugly history of this nation, its legacy of exploitation, colonialism, and racial capitalism, and also and especially with all those who resist it, who dream the freedom dreams, the ones who built the wells we drink from today, the ones whose lessons and legacies live on, waiting to be taken up anew. Libby Roderick wrote that song, How Could Anyone? In, 1980 something. 1980 something. She said it was as if she was channeling the folk consciousness. She wrote it in like 5 minutes. It came to her. It like arose from her and has traveled all around the world, sung in the places of the most pain you could possibly imagine, as a balm and a ministry and a message to any of those who need to hear that they are beautiful and worthy of love. But it also says this: how could anyone be so cruel as to tell you that you are not worthy of love? It's not just a message of love and witness and care for you. It is also a lament about the most horrible parts of our people, which is to say all people. We are in holy and accountable conversation with those sides of human nature as well, in us and in our society and in our history. That song echoes through years and hearts and lungs of all the people who've sung it and received it and needed it. All who, in the middle of our striving and encouragement to do the right thing, have done terribly cruel things to other people. Our holy and accountable conversation about what matters most also includes that side of what it is to be human. Now, the spiritual dimension of life calls us to the social dimension of it, and it matters so much less what you believe and so much more how we live. I first heard these exact words at my own wedding, officiated by someone you might know, the Reverend Terrence Strauss herself. But the concept, the vertical and horizontal dimension of life, which pull on each other, the spiritual dimension and the social dimension, which exert creative tension on each other, of course comes from our pal, the mid to late 20th century theologian Jürgen Moltmann. I know that one was like on the tip of your tongue. The spiritual dimension of life calls you to the social dimension of it. I heard you dedicate your lives and your offering to that work and to that witness. You are in holy and accountable conversation with all those who suffer in the mountains, finding out quickly what they need and how best to get it to them. Raising $33,000 the last I heard in a handful of days, and sending huge trucks of supplies up to trusted partners in those communities. That holy and accountable conversation is listening and responding. You're also in that kind of conversation with us, with your fellow Unitarian Universalists all over the Southeast, through your inspiring leadership, the Soul Summit. Leadership development, spiritual deepening, primarily for lay leaders across the region where our faith communities, the health and thriving of our faith communities is so desperately needed. And I'm sure that Bryce will let you know how to sign up to volunteer for that. Now, it's Pride Sunday here in Atlanta, so this congregation is also in holy and accountable conversation with the entire LGBTQ plus community in Atlanta and beyond. Now, Pride puts you in conversation not just among yourselves as a congregation with a diversity of gender expression and sexuality, nor only with those who live and work in the city of Atlanta or in the, what is it? Are you DeKalb County? Thank you. It's okay, I'm not from here. Not only in this city or in county, but also in holy and accountable conversation with the ones who rioted at Stonewall, the ones who refused to be beaten and policed, the ones who insist on freedom and refused to make it respectable. And so on this Pride Sunday, my prayer, especially for you, especially on this day, you who are newly discovering your queerness, or you who have long been glorying in it, that you understand yourselves to be in holy and accountable conversation with the spiritual ancestors who wait for you to claim them, who call you family, who love your lives, and who dreamed up the world in which you now labor and rest and love and dream. Each and every one of you, each and every one of us, is in holy and accountable conversation with neighbors and strangers and family, with anyone who asks you for cash on the street, with those who store up only for themselves, fists clenched and eyes closed, with everyone near you on any dance floor, glances under lowered lashes, hands caressing hips, with every child who cries, with all those who suffer, resist, die, and wail in mourning for the destruction rained down upon them, made in the USA. You are in holy and accountable conversation with everything that grows. The zucchini and the marigolds and the zucchini and the zucchini and the zucchini and the thickening squash and the spider who weaves her web in the corner of your living room behind the door. All the creatures who inhabit the watershed that flows through your house, your shower, and your sink. Holy and accountable conversation with all those who wait for water. You are in holy and accountable conversation with all those who have come before you and all who will come after, the ones who dreamed up this world where you now love and labor and rest. The ones who will awaken to the world that we shape by our dreaming. You are in holy and accountable conversation with the turning of the seasons, the gentling dark, the heavy air, the exact moment when light and dark sit balanced, the poetry of the heavens and all the strangers you mention it to. You stay in holy and accountable conversation with the big love, the voice of God, the beautiful universe, the great mystery, the spirit of life. Don't let any of those who would wield God as a weapon take you out of those holy and accountable conversations. These conversations, the listening, the responding, and the speaking of the divine and the needs of the people of the divine in this world, echo from this place out beyond us, wheresoever we go, lighting up our computer screens and our porches, our hallways, and our telephone lines, marking us as Unitarian Universalists, the ones who rest in the love that holds us all, whatever language we use for it, The ones who enter this place hungry and leave it filled to the brim with the relational power that makes all good things more possible, that respects all which it connects, that brings more love into the world. May it be so for you and so for us all. Let all who are moved say amen.